We are live. Welcome, welcome. You're joining us for a very rare and special live episode of the podcast. Theme music, theme music, theme music. If you're listening to the audio, we don't have the theme music in there. We're not going to drop it in. Sorry.
We're going to put it in post.
We're going to put it in post, maybe. Probably not. This is Tom. I'm Mr. T. You can see my name on the screen if you're watching. You know that I'm one half of a couple of putts. You can find all the mini golf designs and fun stuff that we do at a couple of putts over at a couple of putts.com. You can see our course design work at minigolfdesigners.com, and you can buy some mini golf goods at minigolfgoods.com. Lots of fun stuff to keep you warm during the winter. We even have mugs, but not this holy moly one that I'm drinking from right now.
You have a holy moly mug. I have a holy moly pint glass. It's like we coordinated red shirts and blue primary colors. We may have done a podcast or two before together because, of course, as everyone knows, I'm Pat, and I'm the co-founder of the mini golf website and social media conglomerate, The Putting Penguin. And we are live. And if you're looking for something to do while you're watching us, you can go check out all of our Penguin mini golf antics, including our course reviews, over at theputtingpenguin.com or any of the social media outlets, except really for X these days, because, well, screw Eon. And while you're out there, don't forget to follow all of our great podcast mini accounts, Instagram, YouTube. Presumably you're following us on Facebook if you're watching us live right now.
We're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. We got some stuff. We will have a lot more in 2025 coming up, and make sure you subscribe and like and give us a good review on all of those wonderful places as well.
And Pat's got it on his hat if you're watching the video, but we are very well affiliated with the AMA, and this is the official podcast of the American Mini Golf Alliance AMA. We are two of the co-founders. We play in the events, and we love the organization, and we're off to a new season. We're going to have an entire episode dedicated to previewing some of the tournaments this season later on. And you can find the full schedule for the AMA over on the AMA website at amaminigolf.com. The upcoming event section has all of the events that are confirmed and have dates through June. If you go to the event history section, you can see all of the dates that are confirmed for the calendar. We're looking to add those to the upcoming events page very soon, but we want to just have all the finalized detail from all the tournament organizers. But you can expect all of those dates are very firm. And of course, being a new year, if you are currently an AMA member as of last year, you just need to go over to our website, click on the Become a Member button in the far right-hand corner on every page, and you can renew your membership. Or if somehow you're not a member already, just join on up. You'll get a membership card in the mail. We send those out to new members for free. On that website, we also have information where you can email us if you want to buy a new membership card. We have that all available. We're also on the contact page. We have a link to sign up for email blasts. I've been meaning to send out one sooner. We're going to kind of wrap up and list some of the end of the season stuff from 2024 that we included in the last podcast episode for the regional winners. We're going to do a little bit with that and hopefully get that out for the end of the week, but so you can sign up in the next day or two and get all of that in your inbox soon and throughout the year. And again, you can follow amaminigolf.com for everything you need. And wanted to let you know that the reason we're able to do this on StreamYard, and we have a nice little background here that we are borrowing from one of our friends that we don't know yet, but it's we're part of the Golfer Gang network of podcasts, and they have a nice little StreamYard setup that we're going to take advantage and use throughout the year. We're going to do some visual things on this and try to do some episodes where we're traveling, where they're kind of fast and dirty, and hopefully record these episodes not only as a live stream and leaving those available, but also in audio. So those of you that are listening to this as a podcast, it makes sense. And if you are listening to this as an audio podcast, we're trying to do our very best to explain some of the visuals, but if you want to get the full experience of what we're sharing, you can watch the videos over on the Facebook and YouTube pages for Podcast. That's Podcast Mini. And I think that covers most of it. I think the only thing I didn't mention about the AMA is that if you also go to that contact page, there is a current new link to the Max Cullen Spirit Award nomination form. And we're looking for people to nominate players that really stood out and made tournaments a fantastic place to be in 2024 and going forward. If you played a tournament and someone's just making it such like a great experience, could be course owner, could be a player, could be somebody cheering people on. We want to get those submissions throughout the year, and each year we're going to announce a winner. So right now we're looking for submissions for 2024 since there hasn't been any tournaments in 2025 yet, but that'll always be on our contact page for the AMA. And I think that's all we have to lead off the show. Kind of excited. This is dead of winter, Minnesota, January. It's dark. I had to put some extra lighting in my room, using my sad light to help illuminate my home office. So you get a little peek at that as well as Pat's home office. But happy to share that with you for those of you who are watching right along. It's going to be on the spot, and who knows, if we make some mistakes, the audio might sound a little bit more rough than usual. It's
We're
better than what it used to be, as we were
That's true.
talking
We
about.
actually managed to go live streaming the first time around, and not like the fourth or fifth time. If for folks who've been with us for a
Oof.
long time have understood our technical challenges over the years.
Yeah, this is going to be, I didn't even think about this. This is going to be the 5-year anniversary of the podcast will be in June.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be
Well,
the 4-year anniversary of the podcast.
yes.
Sometime in February, March, because we started out the podcast doing recaps of the Australian Holy Moly before we knew that they were just going to dump episodes and before I knew how to edit. So it was like, well, thank God there's a pandemic because there's not a lot else to do, especially in the winter in Minnesota. So learned on the fly, but oof, some of those episodes are rough sounding. But can hit 4 years on the podcast.
4 years podcast, and the additional year was when we did the live on
Yes.
Facebook with "You're Gonna Need a Bigger Windmill" when we did, what was it, season
2
2 of Holy
Holy
Moly
Moly.
US, because we really had nothing better to do during a
No,
pandemic.
it was every Friday night after the night after the episode aired. We'd go on a Friday night and makeshift setups, and I think we were using Zoom, and we tried to use Instagram one of the times from Zoom. It
I
was
think
a
I did
hot mess.
Instagram on my phone at one point because we
That
couldn't get something. It's just
Yeah,
terrible.
it was everybody was trying to figure it out, and for better or worse, I think that time was not fun, but we figured out a lot of ways to be really creative. And some of those things were actually things we talked about on earlier episodes of the podcast and things that we're going to share about this evening. But before we jump into an episode that's sort of filled with, I don't want to say non mini golf stuff because it's all not mini golf things that we're talking about, but it's not things that people would think about for mini golf. And maybe a lot of even competitive mini golfers and casual fans don't know this stuff is out there. So that's to come. But we have a few things before that. Yes, Pat?
Yeah, well, one thing in particular we want to talk about, because I guess coming up in May, and we've talked about this on some of the episodes, right? We've gone through the WAG Tour. We've got the WAG Tour finals coming up the 10th and 11th in Portugal. But really, over the past couple of weeks, we're sort of in between our episodes. They've announced what that finalist crew is, and there's been some changes and some updates. And I know Andrew's going to be getting pretty close to announcing actually the whole 2025 schedule pretty soon here too. So lots of WAG Tour. But the big news is as of today, we have 5 players from the US who
Technically,
played it. Well, technically 6. 5 that we sort of confirmed are going. 4 we know for sure are going. two potentials, but of those five of them played at Matterhorn, which was pretty cool.
Yes.
And they're going to be going over. So Tom, you yourself are
Mm-hmm.
friend of the pod, highlighter. Dave Vida, who's the voice of the WAG Tour from the US, I would say. He's been doing the commentary, and last year's Matterhorn winner, he's been over. And then Kyle Corsi, who's also been on the pod. So a lot of pod guests and friends of the pod. And then today, Jeremy and Abbott made the cut as well, and Greg Newport's the other US member who's made the cut as well. So we at the very least have 4 of 44, so an 11th of the field we know for sure is going to be US players. And Tom has been doing his best to start to wrangle all of the information we need to know about mini golf balls, and we'll come together. So I don't want to say we were unprepared for the final last year, because Dave and Caleb did a lot of work, but rest of the world, watch out. US is coming for something this year. I don't know. At the very least, highlighter, you're not going to miss him on the live broadcast.
No,
he's already prepped his entire set of outfits, and I will not spoil it at all because it'll be beautiful. And I was gonna say I'm looking forward to watching, but I'm hopefully looking forward to watching from physically there. And if we're both there, then we're gonna try to use some of this funky technology to do some podcast stuff there too.
Amen. Yeah, that'd be fun. I've never played mini golf in Portugal, and there's a chance that I might end up now playing mini golf in Germany on the way over, because to get to Faro in the Vilmora Family Park in Portugal, where the World Adventure Golf Tour final is, it's best to fly into the Faro airport in the south of Portugal. So that takes a little bit of wrangling. Flights out of Minnesota and MSP in the middle of the country are just always complicated. We don't have a lot of airport options. I think the closest airport outside of MSP that flies internationally to good destinations is Chicago, which is a solid 6.5-hour drive, versus like East Coast Pat's like, well, I could go to Boston, or I could go to Hartford, or I could go to JFK
4 international
or Newark
airports
or LaGuardia,
in less than 3
or
hours.
Baltimore. And yeah, we don't have that many options. So it's nice for getting some of the East Coasters out there. And hopefully that will work in our favor as the future going forward with WAG Tour events on the East Coast, which we're hoping to have a second East Coast WAG Tour event to be announced in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned online for that. But yeah, I've never played mini golf in Portugal, and might get to play in Germany on the way back on a long layover. So anybody listening that has tips on mini golf in Frankfurt, Germany, throw my way. I am happy to take them on. We haven't even really done while we're here. Pat, did you check to make sure we're actually live? And
I did.
people
I've been
can see us?
flipping
They
to
can.
Facebook.
Good.
It looks like people are. Yeah, I mean, we've got, I don't know, like 4 people, so it's something.
Great. We've got way more than that. Just if you heard that, no, it's like 400. You're listening, but if we haven't made a comment already throughout the show, if you have thoughts, comments on things we're sharing or other things, throw them in there. I think if it's not related to the things we're discussing mainly on the show in the AMA, probably put it more towards the end of the show and stay on topic, which we kind of do on the show. But we're happy to deviate and to jump into topics that people tuning in live are interested in, because we really appreciate that. So Vanette can see us. Thank you. And yeah, we can even throw up that's a terrible turn of phrase, throw up your comment on the screen. If you're watching live, we can put it on the screen. Thank you, Vanette. I'm glad you can see us. Yeah, so we have the WAG Tour final coming up and will be a topic of discussion, but tonight's main topic is all things mini golf that are not really putting. And Pat and I had talked about this quite a while ago, about message back and forth while we're, acquiring things. Both of us, me with a couple of putts and him with the putting penguin, have been keen observers of pop culture and where mini golf falls in it, as well as random ephemera. If you come in either of our house places of residence, you'll find all sorts of odds and end mini golf. And we figured if we're going to do a video thing, we'll do our best to show and tell. And if you're listening, we'll just put in the show notes the specific things that we're showing, but we're going to try to talk about them as much as possible so that you're not left out. And it feels fitting for this time of year because it's just not a ton of tournaments. As of right now, the major tournaments we're seeing in the States, there was a Pop Stroke one in Daytona last weekend for the National Putting Tour, and Prodigy event that's part of the AMA Tour, and the Frosty event on the 1st of February down at the Putters League, but not a ton of events. So we wanted to talk about all of these other things that we've been messaging about, and books, board games, and all of that. So I don't know. If you have suggestions, throw them in. We're gonna end up buying them. But I mean that's just how we are. But I blew through a couple of books the last few years that are worth noting. And I guess the first on my list to start it, and the major one is missing, and I think I have it over here over my shoulder. I better have it. I do have it. Actually, I'll go with this book second, but the first book I'm going to start off with, and warn you in advance, it takes a little bit of effort to find some of this stuff. Sometimes it's Amazon used stuff, sometimes it's just searching online, sometimes it's eBay. But the first book on my list that I read this past year is called Tilting at Windmills by Andy Miller. And the subtitle of it is How I Tried to Stop Worrying and Love Sport. And it's the writer's journey, and this is nonfiction. But it's about the writer Andy Miller, who's based in the UK, who grew up not really loving sport, but wanted to and not being good at it, and then eventually got into mini golf. There's a lot of talk about football, and funny enough, in the whole discussion of football, one of the teams in is it I don't know all these teams, like our British people, but there's one of the teams, I think it's the Queen Park Rangers, play on Loftus Road, that the stadium on Loftus Road, which is always funny to hear. I think Martin Gaeta had mentioned it, but this book is really great because it covers a period of time in mini golf that was super early in the British Mini Golf Association. It was published in, I forget when it was published. Of course, I can't find it right away when I'm picking up the book. But it's really great. It's early
according to
years.
Amazon, it was 2002.
That makes sense because it's really, really early years of competitive mini golf. There's John Drexler appearance throughout the book, as he's somebody that interacted with Andy Miller, and Andy ended up going to Myrtle Beach. And I think there's conversations about the early years of the Masters and all of that. And yeah, there's, 7 pillars of crazy golf in it, and it's just a really fun and great book that even if you don't love hearing specifically about mini golf, it's really great. And they even named all of the chapters after the European style mini golf holes. So like one of the chapters, like each of the chapters, they start off with all the Ethernet holes. So can't recommend that one enough. And the one that I'm pretty much done with, again, you're gonna have to look for, that Pat and I both have, Nutters with Putters by Tim Aceman Davies and Ted McIver, is about the UK early years, UK mini golf, the history of mini golf. It was published in 2008, so it was a little bit later, but this book is one of the funniest reads I've ever, like, There's a whole chapter about the post game and little bits on like, what's your personal skill matrix? Are you a team player? Maintaining self-belief. And then there's like a paragraph on blaming your equipment and a whole section of the book about gamesmanship that's very like British and funny. And it's talking about, sometimes if you're planning on already going out and like drinking, the benefit of it is you just don't shower and you smell terrible. That can help distract the person you're playing with. It is absolute genius. And the great thing is that the author, Tim Aceman Davies, has a new book that is out that was on our list. Why can't I find it? Yes, there it is. It's called Win at Miniature Golf, or The Gamesman's Guide to Crazy Golf, a holistic HOLE approach. And that's by Tim Davies. And I've only started to glance through it, but it has a lot of the same sense of humor of Nutters with Putters. Both of these books about UK mini golf, if I wasn't already endeared to the folks over there from my own personal experiences with the lovely people over there, these books are just a perfect document of people that embody a spirit of mini golf that I really appreciate. There's a lot of a sense of humor and having fun in it as much as there is, talk about like actual mini golf.
Yeah, I feel like I have to go back and read Nutters with Putters now, having experienced more of the European side of the game, because I read it very early on in my competitive career and thought it was amazing, right? And like gave me that sense of, oh, I want to go get involved with this. But now that I know, although I've not met Tim or John in person, but like I know more of the culture around it from there, I think it would give me a different perspective on the book. So it's on my list to revisit now.
And there's a video that when I believe they shared it when Ted did the 54 Problems podcast, but there's like a documentary about the British team when they went over to Romania and played in one of the European style tournaments, which, by the way, England never had and still does not have Ethernet and felt and baton courses, but they still went over to Europe and played in these tournaments and typically would just get their butts kicked. But the sense of adventure that they all traveled with was great. And reading in it, I had no idea that Ted had played a tournament in Yokohama on the Ethernet course that's like on the top of a roof of a building. It's one of the only mini golf courses in Japan, and I'd played it, and it was just like visually really exciting. And then, yeah, there's just a million things about this book that if you can find it, it's dense, it's British, it's funny. It doesn't necessarily read fast, but I feel like it doesn't read fast because there's so much funny and built into every line. It's very poetic. And if you've met Ted, it makes perfect sense. So I'm just been grateful that I dug into it. And funny enough, we're going to stick with the UK on my third book. My third book is weirdly a book that comes out every year, the 2024 Guinness Book of World Records. But this is the first year that mini golf was recognized in it. So if you're watching the screen, you can see here in the middle of the book, you can see the little page, and Tim Davies gets a good mention for his accomplishments in playing the and winning in the crazies. Yeah, he had the most wins at the World Crazy Golf Championship with 5, and the women's record is 2 with a former guest, Olivia Prokopova, when she was based out of the Czech Republic and won it in 2013 and 2017. Talks about our past guest, Richard Gottfried, and he has a world record for most amount of courses visited, as well as most holes played in 24 hours and a bunch of other stuff. And you want to know about records with flying discs and all sorts of stuff. This one's one you can find on Amazon and hardcovered and used. And I don't know, I haven't picked up a Guinness Book of World Records since grade school, but it was actually a fun adventure on top of the fact that mini golf was in there as well.
Yeah, and props to Richard for doing a lot of work too, because there's
Yeah.
more on the website as well that doesn't make. So there's world champion type ship type stuff, and he really helped spearhead some of that stuff along with the WMF, getting that in there. So really cool that it is in the hard copy version, especially for those of us who are old and remember that being the source of finding information prior to the internets and Google. It was always a good read and still is a good read, and it's got mini golf in it, so now it's even better read.
I felt like those books also like encapsulated. I had to capture all of the Britishness of the books. And maybe we'll give some like context to why I find it all more charming. But there's something about the experience of reading about something that enhances your experience of going to different places. But Pat, throw out some of your books.
Yeah, well, we're not even done with Britishness because one of the more recent books that has come out, I think it was just last year, is Foul Play at the Seaview Hotel by
That's
Glenda Young.
right.
So a player who's played some British mini golf tournaments, a pretty prolific, maybe not is the right word, but she's written a bunch of books. Oh, see, you have the hard copy. I was like, why don't I have it? No, because I read it on my Kindle. I'm being very electronic. So
Oh,
Tom's got the nice hard
Glenda
copy
Young.
there. Yeah, so that came out in 2023, towards the end of 2023. It's part of a series. It's a cozy crime mystery. There's a main character that continues on through a series, but I thought it was a pretty fun read. Centers around murder in a small seaside town around tournament miniature golf. And I think Glenda did a pretty good job of injecting a little bit of extraness into the tournament side of things. So there's certainly pieces of it. If you've played in a UK tournament or played with UK folks, you can see some of the mirror in there, but she goes a little bit beyond as one would in a fiction piece to grab. But I think it was a quick read for me. I enjoyed the story. Like I said, I think she captured kind of the fun. And I think if you read something like Nutters with Putters and then read that directly after, it would be kind of this interesting double feature that would tie together in some ways, because you would really understand the UK sport that was driving it. And so I highly suggest getting yourself a hard copy or a Kindle. I think it's only like $3 in Kindle, which is pretty nice for a Kindle book. And yeah, it's just good to see. I think one of the things that's nice, it's fun to see the sport in different genres. Most of what we are going to talk about here are kind of biographical or Guinness Book of World Records, but we've actually got fiction on the list here that was driven, and actually my second one too, which again, I don't have a hard copy because, being the good person I was, I actually got this from the library because I was in the library with my children. They were in the young adults kids section looking for books, and on a whim, I went to the computer card catalog and just started seeing what was out there for miniature golf. And there's not a lot, so I've decided that that's going to be my next career move, is writing more children's books about mini golf. I know there's like a Curious George out there and a couple of things we won't touch about today, but I did come across this young adult book called One Last Shot by John David Anderson. And what made it more interesting is that the main character's name, who's I think 10 or 11 or 12 somewhere in there, is Malcolm, which is my son's name. So yeah, I was like, well, now I got to take it out of the library and read it. And it's kind of interesting. It's really told from that like kid's point of view of a miniature golf tournament, and there's family dynamics and kind of maybe a separation, divorce that's weaved throughout this with the tournament stuff. But I actually thought it was pretty good, and it's got 4.7 stars on Amazon, which is pretty good, almost 100 reviews. So a lot of other people thought it was good, but it's young adult, so it reads quickly, and it's kind of broken up like a good miniature golf book is, in chapters, with each chapter being a hole in kind of the final tournament. So it starts with an explanation of how to play the hole and everything. And even though it's told from like a kid's point of view, for anybody who's played a tournament, you kind of sit there and you're like, well, that's kind of how you mentally approach, like, oh, I got to do this, but be careful not to do this sort of thing. So, highly recommend that. Yeah, like I said, don't have something to physically show here, but we'll have it in the show notes and links there. But I thought that was another good fiction book and a little bit lighter content if you're not into murder mysteries. And then the last book, you can't find this in print anymore. It is the book that the Putting Penguin we put out 10 years. So this was now 10 years ago. We kind of collated our top 10 courses at the time and put some reviews and pictures into a book and did some self-publishing. There's probably 50 copies of this thing in the entire world. And I went back to the place that self-published it. Can't get it from there anymore. So it is definitely out of print. But I just do want to say we did put our stamp on a physical mini golf media at one point in time. And it's actually interesting kind of going through it. Unfortunately, some of those courses have closed over the years, and some of them are still there, like the Fantasia Gardens and Fairways down in Walt Disney World's there, and some of the others with Pirate Coves, and some of our favorites are still kicking around. So it was kind of fun to flip through that again. And I think Mandy's watching tonight, so she helped out as we put that book together. Because for our 20th anniversary, we obviously did our mini golf ball. So we're going to come up on 30 years in like another 5-6 years here. We're going to have to think of something else to do.
And it's funny that you talked about having like a book with photos and stuff. I forgot. And I don't know if you've seen that I have this.
No.
This is a book called Mini Golf by Simon Martin. And it's funny because early on in our adventures, it was a book that we got that is a photographic document of miniature golf, adventure golf, crazy golf as a sport within the UK. So happy birthday, Scott Lansley, who's in here. It was like wild looking at it years later. Here's strokes at Margate. There is a photo of Richard and Emily Gottfried. And then the one that was really funny, Adam Kelly and his dad Tony. Adam, years before he was the 2-time Crazy Golf Championship, there's a picture of the kid Will Donnelly, who is one of the UK mini golf UK Wagam team players. So yeah, I don't even know if this Arnold Palmer course down in Margate was open at the time that it came out, but I thought, wow, that was, I had kind of forgot that I had that, but it was like very prescient that I got that very early in our adventures.
So much from the UK. And of course, I'm sitting here going, there's probably other countries that have a lot of literature that we just don't have because we don't read Swedish or German. So our apologies up front to all of our other international friends. We have not read your media if it's out there, but props to the UK because we can read English.
And I brought this just for Pat. And if you're watching, if you're listening, the last book I showed was just a photo only book. But you had mentioned my wife coloring book. The former Goonie Golf Course of Spring Lake Park did a rough and tumble coloring book. So they exist. And I think
there needs to be more of them.
Someday, that's on our list to do.
I told Rob I was looking for new coloring books for Christmas and stuff. And I got some of the, just shapes and ones that I do on board watching TV or something. I'm like, man, there really needs to be, because it also seems it's just a ripe thing for a coloring book, right? Like dinosaurs, windmills, so that'll be our 17th venture that we do down the line here, or Robin will just do it. And I couldn't find my Curious George one. I'm like looking
Curious
through
George
all my
plays
kids
mini golf, and it's like a kid's book in color. It's Curious George. It's got some cute illustrations. He's putting at a castle. Curious George, the monkey, the guy with the guy with the yellow hat. There's a book. I mean, mini golf is just such a huge part of mini golf culture. And you know what? We're gonna jump ahead to one of our comments. Gretchen's book's very good is a comment that we got from past guest Vanette Block, and yes, that is the next one we'll mention is Amazing Strokes by Gretchen Smith. It is a massive tome on all things miniature golf. You can look at this. There is a whole set in the middle of pages. I think it's in the middle. Maybe it's I think it might be at the end now that I think of it. That's just
I think it's at the end.
results from international tournaments. It includes things on the companies that build courses and design courses, unique courses, some that we've played. There's a little thing on us as a couple of putts. Just so much of the history of mini golf that's just kind of amazing, where you get to see there was some history in here of players and where they came from mini golf that was really kind of amazing to read. You're like, oh, like Pauli from Sweden, there's a little player thing on him, and Anders Olsen, and players from all around the world that if you get involved in the world of mini golf, a lot of these names are going to be super common, and some of it, is old history. David and Marion Hartley are mentioned in the book. Hello, Alan Cox, who's listening in. Will Donnelly, the aforementioned. It's a long book. You know, it's really, really well researched, and it's just a ton of information. So you need to have a book on all of the history of it. It's super dense. And there's just, I mean, you're looking at me flipping through it. There's just so much in it that you can kind of read through with the history. I think that would be the number 2 book I would recommend. I think Pat would probably agree that the Bible of mini golf is the John Margoli's miniature golf book. You can find these online on eBay. Sometimes they pop up on Amazon. It's got a AstroTurf cover, and it's got these just incredible photos by John Margolis, who did all of these roadside monument photos of mini golf courses that in many cases don't exist. But you also get all of these cool illustrations that he found in archival places and photos from the history of the game of mini golf. And the history of the game of mini golf in the beginning is super amazing. And if you look on a couple of putts, you can see our review of what's considered one of the first mini golf courses ever, Thistle Do, in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And the way we were able to figure out where the course would have been on that property when we sort of slipped in the fence was based on the book. And it's got so much cool stuff in it that if you are a mini golf fanatic, it's worth taking a look at the history and just how interesting and weird it is, because the history of mini golf sadly was initially a diminutive game that women were allowed to play while the men were playing quote unquote big golf or conventional golf, and has these interesting sort of cross currents into pop culture and how it became big with the Tom Thumb chain of courses that there's no kind of presence of those actual courses in that chain anymore. And then, there's all of the talk about the 20s and 30s in the 20th century in the US, where these rooftop courses that there's very little photos and history of. So it's all stuff that if you love mini golf and you're curious to learn about some of the early years of it and its interesting history, it's a fantastic read. Pat, you've probably went through this a number of times, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's kind of the number one to go back to again and again, and I think it's, I didn't read it until well after starting kind of our journey on the Putting Penguin, but it kind of felt like, this was what we were trying to do in a more digital space, right? Like not just we review the courses and stuff, but really most of what we're trying to do is archive and just make sure that these stories and things are out there for future versions. And John's book is just an early version of that, and really some of the stuff that I don't know if you would really ever find anywhere else
No.
that's captured in that book with the history and those early illustrations and the way it's all kind of brought together. It's really an amazing book. And of course, how many books do you get that have AstroTurf on the cover too? I mean, that just sets it apart.
And if you need something smaller, and I don't know if you have this one, Pat, but
I don't.
the mini book of mini golf by Tim Hollis is a really incredible book that's centrally focused on the South Chattanooga, um, the Goofy and Goonie golf courses, like at what is that? I think that's Fort Walton Beach and Panama City Beach. And that this one I think is the one from Pensacola, that there's this interesting history told in here of early roadside mini golf courses, includes some history on putt-putt. But one thing that I found the most fascinating in this is the history of the Goonie golf chain, which I'd referenced in the Goonie golf coloring book, is that Goonie golf essentially saw all the holes that Goofy golf had designed, slightly modified them and made them less creepy. The guy that came up with the Goofy golf courses sort of saw them in his dreams, and there were a little bit more dark characters. And Goonie golf's like how, it's sort of like how Disney, like, took all of these old fairy tales and sort of like dulled the edges on them. Essentially, that's what Goonie golf did to Goofy golf. But Tim Hollis has these great recollections of courses. There's this huge snake hole on the top of it. You can find this one online too, and I think we'll be able to link to some of the places you can find this one. But it's a short read. It's got some of the history and kind of fantastic as well. And then we have one more book.
Which
Did
I
you have
think
it as
kind
well?
of, yeah, I have. Oh no, that one. Actually, I have one more after that. I do have
Oh,
that one. I don't know. Well, I had one that's going to bridge between books and games, so we'll hold
ooh,
off on that one.
perfect.
But yes, let's cover this one.
So this book is called My Family and Other Hazards by June Melby, and it's a memoir of June growing up living in Iowa and their family driving from Iowa every year to go to Wapaka, I think is the name of the city, in Wisconsin, to run a mini golf course. Their parents are teachers. They have a large family, and they live on this small property in this cute lake community and run a mini golf course, this classic course. And it was called Tom Thumb, but it had nothing to do with like the chain in the South. And I feel like it's the Christmas story version of like a family running a mini golf course, and lots of personality, and the kids kind of being annoyed that every summer they have to do this thing, and that there's this whole rigmarole about starting up the course every day that I think for me was especially interesting to read, just because it's a lot of memories of like family and eventually selling the course and kind of having a bit of wistfulness and longing for that period of time. And funny enough, I had this and I was keen to play that course, and eventually like really blew through it after, oddly enough, meeting June when we were down in Iowa at I forget which city we were in Iowa now that I think of it. We were down in Iowa doing a workshop on mini golf, and she happened to live there, and the people who worked at the art gallery that we were working at on this project were like, "Would you want to meet her?" It's like, absolutely. Talk with her about growing up and living on a mini golf course. And we just had some lovely conversations with her about it, and really like dug into the book further. And it's really fantastic. And maybe someday it'd be fun to have June come on and talk about it. I ended up playing the course a couple of years ago now, and I'm overdue to do a review. And it's one of those reviews on a couple of putts that take me forever, because I can be like verbose here, but when I'm trying to do a review that's got like a lot to it, it's really hard when you take a ton of photos and a ton of videos and there's so much history to like distill it, and it just ends up being this laborious review, but is like a good archive of it. And I feel like this one I really need to do that. But the other thing that was hard was that after reading the book and having these visuals of the holes and how much the family really invested tons of effort in upkeeping this course that seemed like it was just always falling apart. It was not the course was in not as good shape as I had hoped. And I remember texting June, like, I went to the course. She's like, "What did you think of it?" I was like, seen better days, and didn't want to say honestly too much more because just based on the book. But yeah, you could find June's book, My Family and Other Hazards, a memoir out there. It's really, really good. I can't recommend it enough. Another book where the chapters are all based, I think it's another 18 chapter book where like each chapter is is based around one of like chapter 11, the covered bridge, and that's like one of the obstacles on the course. Um yeah, check it out. But you got one more book and then we can transition into some other stuff.
Yeah, so probably most of the people who play miniature golf at some point have had somebody buy this for them because it's the miniature book of miniature golf. And if you're not familiar with it, I will show because you can play mini golf in the book. It comes with a little putter, a couple balls you flip through. It's got 9 different holes. Like this one's Pirates Cove. That's pretty cool. Looks like a skull. I think at some point I had like 6 copies of that
Yeah, I
from
think we
just
have
very.
two.
So I think we've repurposed some gifts and prizes and tournaments and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where I appreciate somebody took the time to do it. It's a good gift for people, and every once in a while I just take the putter out in the ball and play through, right? Like it's a fun thing. But that I wanted to use that as the segue because we've got games coming up, and Tom, you probably have a lot more of these than I do because you've been collecting some stuff and actually have played some that I've had sitting. Oh man, that one too. Like I forgot about that. So where do we want to dive in first?
I feel like this is the perfect one because because weirdly there's this desktop mini golf, and I think I saw either Wade Sommel or somebody else share this as well. But it's got this little kit of a little felt rollout mat and little plastic putters and a windmill that you can wind up. But the cool thing with this desktop mini golf set is there is this mini little book with some cool illustrations, and it has some of the history of the game, and I believe there is discussion of the perfect game of mini golf. There's some trivia that will get you in on the game, but uh this is like a fun one to have set out and read through because it's super small, it's very compact, and you get to learn the history of the game. Like if you're looking for something smaller than John Margolis and smaller than Tim Hollis's book that we mentioned, you can get this game and this little book all in one. And I feel like we should start with the more compact games because this is the most compact. It's a desktop mini golf game. You can just play in a little piece of felt, and it looks like that. Super simple, super cute, super fun.
All right. Well, I got pretty confident. Let me dig in the pile. Oh no, I've lost it. Crap. Oh, there it is.
You're looking for that one?
Yeah, that's the one I was gonna go with. I figured that was. See, we're on the same page. So the mini golf dice game, Crazy Golf. This one, it's a pretty interesting game. You've got kind of like these card layouts that you can pick different, or you kind of set together your pathway, and it's got a handful of not straight numbered dice, differently numbered dice. But the basic premise there is that your combination of rolls, depending on the path you pick through the hole that's laid out, will move your ball along. And You could pick a difficult path, an easy path, and so it's a good game, especially for kids. Like, it's very simple to follow. Tom's showing some of the dice and stuff, and it's got some replayability too, and rather quick. I mean, this is something that you play 10, 15. I think they say 20 minutes on the box, but yeah, I like this one. I'd gotten it as a present at some point in time. And yeah, Tom's showing the different cards available, and you see the different paths and kind of the matchup of the dice. And so that's a nice travel, compact, fun way to play.
Dice game. It's funny because the next one I was going to show is one that, because you and I being mini golf people, and hello to Alan Cox, Derek Hartman, and Mark Giannini, who also listening, and thank you for listening in. I got this dice game called Mini Golf that is super old. It's like probably from, I would guess, the 70s. Look for this in your vintage spots. It's another dice game that it says you either that I think is, yeah, you're also using irons and whatever, but that one's cool. And then the other one that I had that was compact, that I was curious if you were going to put this one up there. If you needed mini golf with your games, just have a deck of themed cards from Matterhorn Mini Golf. They made a deck of cards with photos of obstacles from the course.
It's a nice thing to pick up. I think she still has some there when you go play the WAG tournament there.
You got the next one?
No, because well, hold on. I do have one I could do, because I knew you were grabbing some. So I don't know. Did you grab Pitch and Plaques when it came out?
I didn't get Pitch and Plaques.
Okay, so this one, I think it was Kickstarter or something.
It was.
It's so it's got these module kind of like puzzle pieces, and you can build out your hole, and it's got like little obstacles you can hit through. It's really cool, except for the first iteration that they did, and it's buried at the bottom of the bag. The actual balls they made were made out of
bearings.
Well, no, they made them out of wood, so they're kind of irregular, and they different sizes, and they don't really roll, and so you kind of flick them with your finger, and it's. I play with the kids. We have a good time with it. But there's all sorts of combinations you can do. We don't even bother keeping score. We just try to figure out like what's the craziest types of holes we can make and everything. I can't even remember how much it was, but it was a fun little pickup. I appreciate that same company has done some more kind of wooding games around, I think, football and maybe one or two other sports that they've been out there. But it was just, I think as we will build up to one of our other games that really showcases this, I think the creativity and kind of mix and match way that you can put together miniature golf holes and courses really has aligned itself to a lot of different ways to play mini golf that's not actually playing mini golf.
I don't know if you've seen either of these other two ones that I own. Like I said, I own a lot of random mini golf stuff. You've seen this one?
I've not seen that one.
So this is another game that I think it's probably from the 70s. You have a little wheel that you spin, and these little this little ball, and it's just like a thing where you advance your ball by X amount of strokes on on a grid. And I haven't really played it much, but it's 2 to 6 players, ages from 7 years, includes a playing board, 6 balls, and a spinner. So it's like a Candyland version of mini golf. And speaking of Candyland, have you ever seen the Goofy Golf machine?
Is that like a mousetrap?
It is like a mousetrap.
Does it equally not work the same way mousetrap does?
I don't know that we've set it up more than once. It's one of those things that takes so much effort to set up, but it's like the classic mousetrap game. You can kind of see how it's set up, and Lord knows if it works, but if you can find a working copy, I think Richard Gottfried has a few copies of it. It's something. I can't say that I played it much, but if you're looking for, again, when you're looking for kids, that Plaques game, that pitches and plaques is really good. I
And
think
then I
kids will
didn't
have a lot
even
of fun with that.
think of grabbing the electronic plastic
Oh yeah,
one
yeah, yeah. That
that
plastic
Tom and
molded
I both.
plastic one.
Yeah, there's a molded plastic. No, it's probably you can't see my hands because they're out of the computer screen either. But it's got 9 holes and
It's like 2 by 2
run,
feet or something like
yeah,
that.
run on batteries, and so it's got a moving windmill and a couple other obstacles, similar style little putters and ball bearings
Yeah.
for holes. I think like Hammaker Schlemmer and a couple of those catalog type places sell. I'm sure Amazon sells it too. If we find it, we'll throw the link in there.
I do have that Hammaker Schlemmer, and a couple other people make a roll out kind of mat version of pool
Yeah, I have
snooker.
that too.
I never play it. I can't say I'm a fan of it. It doesn't really roll out flat very well, and it depends on the surface you're on, which, we'll talk about that a little bit later with Putt 18, but I think that one's even more so the case because it's really hard to lay out. If you have animals, you're
No,
SOL.
you can't.
It's
You got to put
a
it in it.
disaster.
It's thin and it's got the border, so you really got to like. It takes 20 minutes to set up,
Yeah.
and then so you have to commit to like I'm gonna play this for an hour to make it worth it. I mean, it's interesting when you have it up there, but yeah, it is not nearly as fun and exciting and simple
No.
as the catalog makes it look. And I know we didn't have this listed, but we should probably shout I don't even know what the name of the game is, but there is that like arcade putting game that's at Can Wonderland
Oh,
that we
yeah, that
play.
old school one with the tethered putter that is like pre-VR where you're putting into like a video, like you're putting under a video screen, and then you're seeing the results. Urban Putt had a hole at all of their courses that were essentially like that video game, but this predated it. I forget the name of it.
I was thinking the other one that's like the pinball machine
Oh,
that has
that
the
one
9
is
holes
there
and
is a more recent version of that one too that you can find in semi more modern arcades where, yeah, you're hitting with you're hitting those ball
yep.
bearings and aiming at cups. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tom and I are like it's you got a slow and a fast, and then so the nerds in us, right? Like we would miss the putt and be like, okay, it breaks to the left,
Yep.
so you got to aim over here, and countless, and it's got like that the one that can's the older one, so it's got like the flip score in there.
It's
So
maybe
shout
like
outs to some of that fun
50s,
stuff.
60s game, but yeah, it's like a pinball game. What's up, Mario Anthony from Down Under, who's listening in and watching as well. And then we have one more board game that I personally have found to be the most satisfying board game. And fortunately, you can kind of find it places. And it is called, and go figure that this game would appeal to me, where this is part of what I do. It's called Mini Golf Designer by Thematic Games. And you can kind of see in the photos what it is. But the basic explanation of it's a competitive free form puzzle game for 1 to 5 players that plays to about 60 to 90 minutes. I think that's about right. Around 20 minutes per player. And it's mostly focused on tile placement. So if you've played a game like Carcassonne, Isle of Skye, similar like tabletop games, but it's a little bit more, the shape of how things turns out depends on a lot of different factors, and you're just drawing these tiles out of a bag, and setting them out, and you get a few options, and you're trying to build a course where you start the first hole right near the clubhouse that you start with, the clubhouse tile that you start with, and you're trying to keep the par within a certain range. You're trying to have the holes all line up and also make the shape of the course of the card that you selected to begin. So there's all these different factors. And if you take it to another level, there's all of these elements that can score you points, because your whole purpose of this as a mini golf designer is you're designing to these clients' whims, which feels way too real. As like I said, my wife and I do mini golf design and consultation. Find your stuff at minigolfdesigners.com, oddly enough. And yeah, I mean, some of it's just like totally random. Like they want holes with a lot of pipes, or they want holes with a lot of water, and you get points some games based on all these different factors, but if there's people on the little tiles, you get extra points because for popularity points for the course that you build. So for those like that understand the dynamics of like what makes a mini golf course like interesting and balanced and all of that, it's kind of fun to play around with and will be fairly intuitive to most mini golfers. And they've done a bunch of expansions as well. They did the Empire extension, and I think they have another extension where they updated from the original Kickstarter the rule book. But it's super fun, and I don't know. I hope someday at a tournament I show up and people are like, "Hey, let's play this game tonight." I know there's ways to play it without packing up the full box, and maybe I'll have to throw it in my luggage going overseas. I feel like Ted McIver has not played it, but needs to have a copy of that game. But it's super fun. Yeah, we haven't even gotten a chance to play it, but
No, I was
should
gonna
be on
say
the bucket list.
been to Minnesota a couple times. No, we haven't found time to play it. Although to be fair, last time I was there, your beloved Timberwolves were in the playoffs. So
Yeah, we would have been better off playing board games. So two more that I'll share. One that we have not done that I think this is a Dutch artist, Jan van Hosteren, 1,000-piece puzzle, mini golf puzzle. Look at that. Look how crazy. It's like a Where's Waldo wacky looking course. I think that's something we're going to do this winter. And then one that we have hanging in our room that is this another one of his? This is a Springbok jigsaw puzzle, 500 pieces. Look at that craziness. It's like a wacky course. Super fun if you like puzzles. They're out there in the world. Again, sadly, it feels like we're sharing things that it's like, and by the way, they're not easy to find, but this is where you put save searches on eBay and other places, and this stuff shows up. I think this puzzle, because this puzzle maker is like well known, their stuff ends up on eBay in those places. So I think that's all that I have for books and games, but there's a lot of fun stuff out there that I think can add to your enjoyment of the game for books and board games. Anything that I missed, Pat? Did you have other books, board games?
no, I didn't have any. No, I think we covered everything that I own. I think I mean you have a lot more than me, and we've touched on all of those. I think at some point we'll probably have to do another one of these and just focus on like TV and movies
Oh
that you
my
can watch
god.
mini golf in because the list is quite extensive, even outside of actual documents or documentaries and things like that. And there's just somebody would pinged me the other day, they were like, "Hey, I'm watching Gravity Falls and it's the mini golf episode." And I was thinking of you, and I was like, "Well, that's cool."
Yeah, there's so much. There's a great Rugrats episode. There's even
Scooby
recent
Doo.
stuff, like there was an episode in season 1 of The Sex Lives of College Girls, an HBO show, where the soccer team went to go play mini golf, and I'm certain it was supposed to be shot, like, on the East Coast where the colleges that they're going to, but it was clearly golf and stuff out in, Southern California. Obviously, Karate Kid and then Cobra Kai is in that mix, but yeah, that could be a crazy, crazy long episode. But I think the two big games that we talk about regularly on the podcast are the two games that are part of the American Mini Golf Alliance virtual event series that are Walkabout Mini Golf VR and Putt 18. And you should be fairly familiar with them by now because we talk about them, but Putt 18's a rollout mat, has 6 tees, 3 targets that you're aiming at. It's a flat carpet. It's been some people have called it the carpet league because that's you're putting on a piece of carpet with targets, but it's a great way to get some reps in, and there's a Putt 18 World Pro League that we've talked about. The new season, Series 18, is starting up soon, and there's 41 players from tons of countries. We added Canada. I guess Canada had some players, but constantly adding new players from around the world. So it's super fun. There's players from Austria, Canada, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, the States, Great Britain, and I'm probably missing a country somewhere within the Czech Republic. So it's all the countries that have WAG Tour events, World Adventure Golf Tour events, and play competitive mini golf. So it's fun to get to know people there with that community. And then Walkabout's a VR game. If you have an Oculus headset or other similar headsets, it's super fun. You can interact and play with people around the world. And for people, I think there's people that are skeptical that a video game is actually mini golf, but I would challenge you to play that and not feel like the physics of it are identical. And on top of it, they do have like putter extenders where you are literally using a weighted putter where you are imitating the swing of a putter. And as we'll mention in a little bit, they're adding new courses left and right. And they're now up to their 30th course design theme, and each course has a easy and difficult course. So you have 60 courses you can learn. That's
It's a
that's a
lot.
lot of mini golf. Most people do not play that many courses in a year, let alone to learn them. And I don't know, you can learn creative ways to play mini golf holes doing that. But yeah, that's kind of it for what we wanted to talk about. Books and board games to help you get through the cold winter. It's been under below 0 Fahrenheit. So for you people in Celsius, it's a lot. It's a lot colder than whatever it is, and we have a weekend ahead with more of that weather. So this puzzle might this puzzle by Jan van Hosteren might become a reality, or maybe play some mini golf designer. But things for you if you're fighting off the cabin fever and winter blues that we mostly recommend. And then there's some great reading. And yeah, if you can get that John Margoli's book, if you can get any of those books, we recommend them all. If you're a competitive mini golfer, just want an extensive history, Gretchen Smith's book is really extensive. There's some odd editing choices and errors in it, but generally it's really good. There in our little thing on a couple of putts, there's a photo of Robin's friend who was their wedding photo was in our little section that we have no idea why they're in it. He actually hates mini golf, so it was funny that it was included. But then the photos were also covering up some of the text. But those are some small things within a larger book that, frankly, like, yeah, the history of the game is just wild. There were so many putt guys that I had no idea previously lived in different places and owned and operated courses. That was pretty cool to see in just a massive tome.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think we got any more comments. We can close out. I mean, we do want to thank Walkabout, who is the sponsor of the
Yep.
podcast. As Tom said, they actually, as we're recording, tomorrow will be releasing their newest course, which is Elvis in Vegas themed, called Viva Las Elvis, and I am very excited. From the trailers that have been out there, looks like a lot of cool casino themed holes and stuff. So looking forward to diving into that. Their latest one was a holiday themed one, which was just
Incredible.
it was so cozy is probably the right
Yes.
word for it. Set in like this winter cabin and playing around a Christmas tree, but had multiple religions represented throughout and everything. And just the holes were, I don't know, there was a couple challenging ones even on the easy course, but for the most part,
Mhm.
it quickly became one of my favorite. I can just put it
Yes.
on and play through and not really worry about like trying to hit all these fancy shots for aces and
Yeah.
just go and play it. And a absolute ton of Easter eggs to their other courses
Yes.
in that one as well. And the fox hunt, which if you're not familiar with it, there's in the hard version, it's how you get the putters. There's clues that you follow around. That one really kind of took you on a journey of the history of walkabout in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, which was really cool. But yeah, I mean, just to echo what Tom said, it's the physics, but for me, it's the immersion into
Yes.
the different styles. And it's, somebody who loves Labyrinth, their course, just I
Yep.
could just put on the headset and walk around that course for 20 minutes and be happy and never hit a ball. So shout out to them. Definitely go check them out. Thank them as always for being a sponsor here of the podcast and the AMA.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll just end it quickly on big thoughts. Mini golf, and mini golf is it's a special game and sport. It's one of the few physical activities out there where you can find a wide range of people playing, where brute force and physical fitness aren't really as important to success as practice, focus, and form. And the game has a lot of unique places in our cultures, which we've really discussed in this episode, in the US and UK and in a lot of other countries as well. And we just really love that there's so many different ways to be engaged in the sport, and just encourage people, if you're not playing competitively, that that can be another level in which you can engage courses and play the game in a different way that can enhance your love by getting to know a community of fun-loving people that like to go out. I would speak highly, especially of the AMA circuit, and just the, both competitive level as well as the welcoming spirit. And I would say the same with a lot of other places. And if you're a competitive player, consider looking at some of these other sides of the game and other elements of the game. I think we get so tied up in what's the right line and what condition the course is in and everything, and forget about just the goofiness of some of these mini golf courses. Like that Portugal course, having watched the video, is also like this big Roman Colosseum theme and everything, on top of the fact of these holes being difficult. And I think it's good for us not to forget that stuff, because that is as much important to the game, not only to, what the physical layout of the course is, but just to the history of the game and the experience of other people there. And got to make sure that we experience that as well. So, yeah, that's it for my big thoughts mini golf.
With that, we're at the 19th hole. So until next time, everybody, putt when ready.
Adios and stay warm.